The snow had begun to fall heavier, thickening in slow spirals as twilight sank over the winding forest road. Anna Richardson tightened her grip on the steering wheel, her wipers brushing away slush in steady rhythm. The world outside her windshield had turned a soft, colorless blur of white and gray, broken only by the dark silhouettes of pine trees lining both sides of the road. It was quiet, eerily quiet. No passing cars, no bird song, just the occasional groan of wind pressing against the glass and the muffled crunch of her tires over packed snow. Inside the car, the heat was on low. Anna had always liked the cold, though lately, with the pregnancy, she found herself needing more warmth. At 5 months along, her body was changing in ways she was still learning to accept. Dressed in a charcoal wool coat that she could no longer button over her growing belly, a cashmere scarf snug around her neck, and leather boots that were becoming harder to tie, she still looked every bit the image of a woman in control. Her auburn hair, straightened from a salon visit the week before, fell past her shoulders as she leaned back into the driver's seat. She had come to these Colorado mountains to unplug, to breathe, to escape the static of corporate life and complicated relationships. After discovering her pregnancy and ending things with a partner who wanted nothing to do with fatherhood, she had finally hit pause, booked a remote cabin, left her phone on airplane mode, and told her business partner not to call unless the company was collapsing. The grocery bag beside her seat rustled as she turned another bend, headlights casting long shadows. She was almost back, just another mile or so. Then she would be in her cabin with a fire crackling and herbal tea in hand, her hand resting on the small bump that held her future. That was when it happened. A flash of red darted across the road. Anna slammed the brakes. The car skidded, tires sliding over the icy surface. Snow flew up like a curtain, obscuring her view. Her heart thudded against her ribs as one hand instinctively moved to protect her belly. The car jolted to a stop. She sat frozen, hands trembling on the wheel. Then she saw it. Just beyond the hood, standing in the middle of the road, was a little girl. She was tiny, no more than 5, bundled in a tattered knit sweater too thin for the weather, a red dress peeking out beneath. Her boots were mismatched. Her hair, dark and messy, clung to her damp cheeks. Her wide eyes shimmered with shock and fear. Anna threw open the door and ran out into the snow, moving as quickly as her changed center of gravity would allow. "Sweetheart," she called, crouching down carefully. "Are you hurt? What are you doing out here alone?" The girl didn't answer. Her lips quivered, her chin tucked into her scarf as she blinked hard. And then she burst into tears. "Ma'am," she hiccuped through sobs. "I can't find my papa. He said he'd be back, but he didn't." The words hit Anna like a punch to the chest. Not just the fear in the child's voice, not just the cold that had clearly settled into her bones, but that word, Papa. Something in it cracked through the ice Anna had built around herself. She reached out slowly, gently, taking the girl's frozen hands into her own gloved ones. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's get you warm first." "All right." The girl nodded, sniffling. Anna guided her into the front seat of the SUV, turned up the heat, and grabbed a blanket from the back. She wrapped it around the child's shoulders, then sat beside her for a moment, watching her calm little by little. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Letty," the girl whispered. "Letty Martin." "That's a beautiful name, Letty." The girl clutched the blanket tighter. "We live nearby, in a wood house just a little bit away. I know how to get there." Anna hesitated for only a breath. Then she reached for her keys, turned the engine back on, and gave Letty a reassuring smile. "Okay then, Letty, you tell me which way to go." The car rolled forward slowly, tires crunching through fresh snow, guided by the soft voice of a little girl in a red dress towards something Anna did not yet understand. But already, her heart was steering. The road narrowed as they drove deeper into the woods, trees arching overhead like silent witnesses. Letty sat bundled in the blanket, breath fogging the window as she pointed. "Down there," she said. "That's our house." Anna slowed the SUV, turning onto a faint path blanketed in snow. Tires crunched softly as they approached a small wooden cabin nestled among pine trees. It looked like it belonged in a storybook, modest, old, but sturdy. The chimney was still, the porch light off. She parked and glanced around. No other homes in sight. Just trees, snow, and the low hum of the engine. Letty hopped out before Anna could stop her, running to the front door. She pushed it open without a key. "Papa never locks it," she said, "in case I need to come in." Anna followed, boots creaking on the wooden floor, one hand unconsciously resting on her belly. Inside, the cabin was dim. The fireplace was cold, and the only light came from a single oil lamp on a side table. "Hello," Anna called out. No answer. Her eyes scanned the room. It was small but tidy, everything in its place. A well-loved couch, a threadbare rug, children's books stacked neatly in a corner, a pair of tiny shoes by the door, a folded blanket on a rocking chair. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Whoever lived here clearly cared for the space and for Letty. "Where's your papa, sweetheart?" Letty climbed onto the couch, still wrapped in her blanket. "He went to get firewood. He always goes into the woods. He said he'd be back before dark." Anna looked at the window. It was already dark. She pulled out her phone. No signal. Of course. Letty hugged her knees. "Sometimes he takes a long time," she said, though her voice trembled. Anna knelt beside her, moving carefully. "All right, let's warm up and wait a bit." "Okay." In the small kitchen, Anna found some canned soup and dried noodles. She managed to heat something simple on the stove, spooning it into two mismatched bowls. "Here," she said, handing one to Letty. "It's not fancy, but it'll help." Letty ate slowly, spoon tapping the bowl. In between bites, she spoke softly, dreamily. "My mama died when I was little," she said. I don't remember her voice, just her smile. It was warm like sunshine. Anna blinked, her hand moving to her belly again. "That's a lovely memory. Papa says she was the brave one. That's why I have to be brave too." Anna swallowed hard. This little girl, so small, carried more than most adults. Her words held no pity, only quiet acceptance. "He says I should never go out after dark, that the woods are tricky, but I waited and waited, and he didn't come." Anna gently brushed her hand over the girl's hair. Something shifted in her chest. Stranger or not, she couldn't just walk away. And with her own child growing inside her, the instinct to protect felt even stronger. Outside, wind picked up. Snow slapped the windows and crept through cracks in the frame. The cabin groaned in the cold. Anna checked her watch. 7:12 p.m. too long. She stood and paced to the window. Nothing but white. No shadows, no signs. She turned to Letty. "Do you know where your papa usually goes to get wood?" Letty nodded. "I can show you." Anna hesitated. Every instinct said stay inside, but something stronger pushed her. "All right," she said, grabbing her coat. She bundled Letty tighter, lifted her into her arms, carefully adjusting for the weight of her pregnancy, and switched on the flashlight on her phone. The girl wrapped her arms around Anna's neck. "Ready?" Anna asked. Letty whispered into her ear. "I'm not scared when you're here." Anna opened the door. Cold air hit her face instantly. Trees loomed in every direction, heavy with snow. She stepped forward into the dark, into the unknown. Not for business, not for herself, but for a little girl in a red dress, and for the child she carried within. The forest closed in around them, a maze of tall pines dusted with heavy snow. Every branch looked the same, every direction a copy of the last. The cold stung Anna's cheeks as she trudged forward, her boots sinking deep with each step. Her back ached from the extra weight she was carrying, both in her arms and in her belly. Letty clung tightly to her, arms wrapped around Anna's neck, her small voice whispering near her ear. "Papa always goes that way, by the tall tree with broken branches." Anna turned the beam of her phone's flashlight in that direction. Her breath clouded in the air, her arms aching. But she didn't stop. 10 more steps. 20. "Then wait," Letty whispered. "That's it. That's the tree." The flashlight caught the shape of a crooked pine. One side of its top snapped clean off. Anna angled the beam lower, then froze. In the snow below the tree, a long, uneven trail had been carved, a drag mark leading downhill. At the end of it, something lay still. A pile of wood was scattered around a man's body, his limbs twisted unnaturally. Snow had begun to cover him, and the edges of his coat were stiff with frost. Anna's heart leapt into her throat. "Letty, stay calm," she whispered. But the girl had already seen. "Papa," she screamed. Her cries shattered the quiet of the woods. "Papa, wake up, please. I was so scared." Anna knelt beside the man, carefully, protecting her belly as she set Letty down on a patch of dry snow near the fallen branches. She pressed her fingers to his neck. A pulse, slow but steady. "Thank God," she breathed. There was a gash on his forehead, dried blood crusted near his temple. His skin was pale, lips tinged blue. "Sir," she said, tapping his shoulder. No response. She looked back at Letty, whose face was blotchy with tears. "He's alive, baby, but we have to move fast." Anna tried to think. In her condition, she couldn't drag him. She wrapped her arms under his and tried to pull, but pain shot through her lower back and abdomen. She stopped immediately, one hand moving protectively to her belly. "I can't. Not like this," she whispered, fighting panic. "Letty, sweetie, I need you to be very brave right now." She stood, scooping Letty back into her arms, and ran back through the trees as fast as she could manage. The beam of the flashlight jerked wildly with each step. Branches snagged her coat. Letty buried her face in her neck, too exhausted to cry. They broke through the edge of the forest and reached the roadside. The world was quiet. No headlights, no sound but wind. Anna spun in place, scanning. Come on, come on." Then two distant lights appeared through the snow. A vehicle, getting closer. She stepped into the road, waving frantically. The SUV slowed, then stopped. A patrol truck. The officer inside rolled down the window, concern etched across his face. "Are you all right, ma'am?" Anna pointed toward the woods, breathing hard. "There's a man. He's hurt. Unconscious. We need to get him now." The officer was out of the truck before she finished her sentence. He radioed for backup, grabbed a flashlight, and followed Anna back toward the forest. With the officer's help, they returned to the spot and carefully lifted the man out of the snow. Anna kept Letty close, her arms wrapped protectively around the girl as they waited. Her hand never left her belly, a silent promise to the child inside that everything would be okay. Back at the cabin, Kristoff was laid gently onto the couch. The officer left after ensuring they were safe, promising to send a medic up if needed. Anna worked quickly, though her movements were more measured now, mindful of her pregnancy. She removed Kristoff's wet coat, checked his pulse again, and cleaned the blood from his forehead with a damp cloth she found in the bathroom. She wrapped him in layers, added more wood to the fire, and lit the old lamp. Letty sat beside her father, eyes wide, holding his hand. Her head slowly drooped to the side, and she fell asleep, cheek resting against his arm. Anna let out a long breath, her hands still trembling. She lowered herself carefully onto the armchair, one hand resting on her belly where she felt a small flutter, her baby moving for the first time that day. On the table nearby sat a worn photograph in a wooden frame. It showed Kristoff, younger, smiling, beside a woman with kind eyes and long dark hair. Between them, a toddler beamed at the camera. Anna picked it up, touched the frame gently. "You did everything you could, little one," she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from Letty's face. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the fire crackled. And for now, they were safe. Morning crept into the cabin with a faint cold light that seeped through the thin curtains. The fire in the stone hearth had burned low but still pulsed with a gentle glow. The hush of dawn was broken only by the occasional pop of wood and the quiet sound of breath, small and steady. Kristoff stirred, a slow, pained movement. His thick brows knit as his eyes blinked open, adjusting to the light. For a moment, he stared at the timber ceiling above him, confusion flickering in his dark eyes. Then he shifted slightly, wincing at the stiffness in his shoulder and the dull ache at his temple. He turned his head and saw her. Letty, curled up in the armchair beside him, her tiny fingers still wrapped around his large hand, her face slack with sleep. His eyes softened instantly. "Letty," he whispered hoarsely. "She's okay." "She is," came a gentle voice. Kristoff flinched slightly at the unfamiliar sound. He looked toward the kitchen area and saw a woman, elegant, composed, and visibly pregnant, setting down a mug of steaming tea. She stepped closer, one hand resting naturally on her rounded belly. Her auburn hair was loose, softly framing her face. The morning light caught in the strands, giving her an almost ethereal glow. "You hit your head pretty hard," she said gently. "You're lucky it wasn't worse." Kristoff's gaze moved from her face to the room, slowly piecing things together. "My daughter, is she? She's safe." She was scared, but she stayed strong. "You both are safe now." He pushed himself upright with effort, biting back a groan. "Thank you. I don't even know your name." "Anna. Anna Richardson." He nodded slowly, eyes dropping to Letty again. She stirred but did not wake. "You found her out there, in the snow." "She ran into the road," Anna said quietly, "right in front of my car." Kristoff's face fell with guilt. "I told her never to leave the house when I'm out. I shouldn't have taken so long. I slipped. Must have blacked out." Anna watched him closely. There was a strength to him, not just physical, a steady presence even in weakness. "You have nothing to apologize for," she said softly. He gave her a grateful look, though discomfort lingered behind his eyes. He seemed painfully aware of the contrast between them. His flannel shirt torn at the cuff, the old patched blanket pulled over his legs, and the polished woman standing in his kitchen, carrying a child of her own. "I don't usually have guests," he said with a sheepish edge. "This place, it's not much." "It's more than enough," Anna replied. Her voice was calm, honest. He rubbed his temple. "I used to live in Denver. Lost my wife 2 years ago. Car accident. Letty was barely 3. Everything there reminded me of her. So we left. Started over here. I take on whatever work I can, wood cutting, electrical fixes, car repair. Pays just enough to get by." Anna said nothing for a moment. She watched him speak, his words simple, never dramatic. There was no bitterness in his voice, only quiet resilience. She thought of her own situation, single, pregnant, building a business while preparing for motherhood alone. And here was this man, buried in snow and silence, raising a child alone with his hands and heart. "I don't know how you do it," she murmured. "You just do," Kristoff said. "Because she needs me." Letty shifted in her sleep and mumbled something unintelligible, still gripping his hand. Anna glanced at the window. Snow was still falling, thicker now. The wind whispered against the glass, and the world outside looked wider than ever. She sighed. "Looks like I'm not going anywhere soon." Kristoff glanced at the door, a little embarrassed. "There's no guest room, just this space." She smiled, grabbing a throw blanket from the couch. "I've slept on airport benches between meetings. Trust me, I'll be just fine." Kristoff watched her settle onto the other end of the couch, her presence filling the space with quiet confidence and something warmer than heat. For the first time in a long while, the cabin felt less like a shelter and more like a home. The next morning dawned crisp and clear. Light filtered through the frosted windows, casting soft gold across the wood-paneled walls. A warm, buttery smell drifted through the air, simple, comforting. Anna stirred from the couch, stretching beneath the blanket, her hand instinctively moving to her belly where the baby had been active throughout the night. The chill still lingered, but the cabin now felt like it had quietly welcomed her. In the kitchen, Kristoff stood over a cast-iron pan, flipping bread and sizzling butter. Scrambled eggs steamed beside him. A small jar of honey sat open. "Good morning," he said, glancing over. Anna walked over, rubbing her arms. "Smells amazing. I wasn't expecting this kind of breakfast." Kristoff smiled, flipping another slice. "Letty's picky. Took me a lot of burned toast to get here." She laughed softly and took a seat, watching him work. There was something peaceful about his rhythm, quiet, steady, purposeful. A soft shuffle. Letty appeared in her pajamas, hair messy, eyes sleepy. "Papa." She ran to him, hugging his legs. He leaned down and kissed her hair. "You're just in time. Hot breakfast." Letty turned and spotted Anna, offering a sleepy smile. "Hi, Miss Anna." "Good morning, sweet girl," Anna said. They sat at the round table. Anna took a bite of the toast and blinked. "This is really good. Like, better than some restaurants I've been to." Kristoff chuckled. "You're being generous." Letty giggled between bites of egg. After breakfast, Anna helped clear the table, moving a bit slower than usual. Letty tugged her hand, eyes bright. Can we make paper stars? I saw colored paper in the drawer. Anna grinned. Absolutely. They sat by the window, folding bright sheets into delicate shapes. Letty cut clumsily with scissors while Anna guided her hands. Paper stars began to pile across the table. Kristoff watched from the doorway. Letty's laughter echoed, clear and full of life. It had been so long since he'd heard it shared with someone else. For a moment, he just stood there, watching. Anna looked up and smiled at him, one hand resting on her belly. He smiled back. Later, as the sun climbed and snow melted on the roof, Anna stood by the door, slipping on her coat. It was time to go. The road would be clear enough. She adjusted her scarf and brushed her sleeves, though the coat still wouldn't button over her pregnancy. Well, I should get back. Kristoff nodded, his expression unreadable. Letty darted into her room and came back, clutching something in her small hands. She held it out to Anna, breathless. This is for you, Miss Anna. Anna knelt down carefully. Letty placed a small knitted hat into her palm, a tiny beanie with mismatched yarn patches and soft colors. It's warm, Letty said seriously. It had holes, but Papa fixed it. It's still good. For when your baby comes. Anna stared at it, emotion welling in her chest. She closed her fingers around the hat. Thank you, she whispered. This is the kindest gift I've gotten in a long time. Letty beamed. Anna turned to Kristoff and pulled a small card from her pocket. No title, just her name and a personal email written in blue ink. If you ever need anything, she said, placing it in his hand. Even just someone to talk to. He took it gently, eyes meeting hers. Something had shifted between them, unspoken but real. Thank you, he said. For everything. Anna nodded and stepped outside. The cold air met her face, sharp but fresh. She walked toward her car, the little knitted hat tucked into her coat pocket, close to where her baby grew. She had come here chasing silence, but what she found instead was the quiet sound of something beginning. Back at the cabin she had rented, Anna stood motionless by the wide window, watching the snow fall beyond the glass. Everything was pristine, clean lines, modern furniture, a fire flickering softly in the stone fireplace. A cup of herbal tea rested on the table beside her, untouched. The bathtub steamed in the next room, a robe hanging neatly from the door. But the silence felt heavier now. Her eyes drifted to the small knitted hat sitting on the edge of the coffee table. It looked entirely out of place, faded, patched with love, the yarn slightly frayed. Yet it was the only thing in the room that felt alive. She reached for it slowly, running her fingers along the stitches, feeling her baby move beneath her other hand. A sharp trill broke the stillness. Her phone buzzed with a call from her business partner back in Seattle. Anna, the voice came quickly. I'm sorry to interrupt your time away, but there's been a development with the investors. You're needed back sooner than expected, by Monday morning at the latest. Anna pinched the bridge of her nose, exhaling. Got it. I'll change my flight. Should I reschedule your meetings for Tuesday as well? She didn't respond immediately. I'll let you know. When the call ended, she lowered the phone and sat in the oversized armchair near the fire. The hat still rested in her lap, and her hand moved to her belly again. The city was calling, but it felt like something else was pulling harder. Later that afternoon, suitcase packed, coat unbuttoned over her belly, Anna climbed into her SUV and began the drive down the winding, snow-dusted road. Pines blurred past on either side. The air was sharp and clear, the sky open and pale. Then she reached the familiar fork, the turnoff that led to Kristoff's cabin. She slowed the car. The wood trembled slightly under her hands. Her heart beat faster, inexplicably. She reached for her phone, stared at Kristoff's number saved under a note she had scribbled the night before. Her thumb hovered above the screen. Then she stopped, slipped the phone back into her coat pocket. Why am I hesitating? She whispered aloud. Why does this feel like leaving something unfinished? She sat there a moment longer, snow gently collecting on the windshield, the engine idling. Her baby kicked, as if offering an opinion. And then, without thinking too much, because thinking had gotten her nowhere lately, Anna turned the wheel. The car reversed slowly, then circled back. She didn't aim for the airport. She didn't head toward the city. She drove back toward the forest, toward the little wooden house buried in snow and pine. As she approached the clearing, the soft crunch of tires on packed snow was the only sound. Her headlights illuminated a quiet scene ahead. Kristoff and Letty were out front, bundled in coats and mittens, working together to shovel the walkway. Letty was trying to push a snow pile twice her size. Kristoff stood beside her, smiling patiently. They both looked up as the SUV rolled into view. Letty dropped her shovel. Kristoff froze. Anna stopped the car, turned off the engine. The silence returned, but this time it was warm, expectant. She rolled down the window and smiled, brushing her hair behind one ear. "I left something here," she called out, voice lighter than it had been in days. "Not sure what it is yet, but I'd like to find out." Kristoff stepped forward, his face unreadable, then slowly broke into a smile. Letty clapped her mittens together. Anna opened the door and stepped out into the snow, one hand resting on her belly. And for the first time in a very long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. When Anna stepped out of the SUV, Kristoff looked like he was about to speak. His brows were slightly furrowed, his expression unsure. But before he could say anything, Anna raised her hand and shook her head lightly. "Don't make it weird," she said, her voice steady but soft. "I just don't like leaving things halfway." Kristoff blinked, then let out a small breath, half laugh, half sigh, and nodded. There were no grand explanations, no forced gratitude. She came back not as a guest or a savior. She simply returned, and somehow that felt right. That afternoon, the three of them took a short walk behind the cabin. The snow had softened under the pale winter sun. Light filtered gently through the pine branches, casting golden streaks across the forest floor. Letty stomped through fresh snow drifts with glee, dragging Anna by the hand while Kristoff followed behind, hands in his coat pockets, eyes warm. There was no rush, no deadline, just footsteps, laughter, and the soft sound of wind brushing through trees. Anna walked carefully, protective of the life growing inside her, but feeling more grounded than she had in months. That evening, after Letty had fallen asleep, curled under a patchwork quilt on the couch, Anna sat by the fireplace wrapped in a thick wool blanket. Her hair was loose, auburn waves tumbling around her shoulders. The firelight flickered against her skin, giving her a softer look than the crisp, calculating woman Kristoff had met just days ago. Her hand rested on her belly, feeling the gentle movements of her baby. He was sitting in the armchair across from her, elbows resting on his knees, watching the flames more than her, but not by much. After a long pause, he asked quietly, "Back in the city, were you happy?" Anna didn't answer right away. Her gaze dropped to the mug in her hands. "I was successful," she said finally. "That's not the same, is it?" The words hung in the air, raw and honest. For the first time, Kristoff saw her not as someone passing through his life, but someone who had been carrying weight for far too long. He didn't offer advice or try to fix it. He simply gave her a small nod and stood, walking to the fire to add another log. The quiet that followed wasn't awkward. It was warm, familiar. Before heading to bed, Kristoff returned with something in his hand, a small wooden mobile, smoothed by hand, with 3 carved figures dangling from thin strings, a moon, a star, and a tiny bird. "Just so you know," he said, placing it gently on the table in front of her. "You belong here now, and so does your little one." Anna looked up, startled. She stared at the mobile for a long moment, then picked it up slowly, cradling it in both hands. It had been years since someone had made something just for her, and now, for her baby. Not a corporate gift, not a transaction. Something real. Something that said, "You matter." She held the mobile close for a beat longer than necessary, then whispered, "Thank you." Later that night, long after the fire had settled into glowing embers, Anna sat in the tiny guest corner of the cabin, her notebook open on her lap. She wasn't sure why she was writing. Maybe to make sense of what she was feeling. Maybe just to hold on to it a little longer. She wrote, "Maybe home isn't a place. Maybe it's a quiet fire, a small voice, and someone who doesn't ask you to change. Maybe it's knowing that even when you're carrying new life, you're not carrying it alone." She closed the notebook and pressed it against her chest, feeling her baby shift inside her. For the first time in years, Anna Richardson didn't feel like she was running towards something or away from it. She just felt still. And stillness, she realized, might be exactly what she needed to begin again. The next morning, the world was still, blanketed in a soft white quiet. The snow had stopped. The sky above was pale blue, streaked with gold. It was the kind of morning that whispered of beginnings and goodbyes. Anna woke early. She sat on the edge of the small guest bed, letting the hush of the cabin settle around her one last time. She folded the wool blanket, packed the few things she had, and placed the carved wooden mobile gently on the kitchen table. No note, just the mobile. A small goodbye that did not need words. Outside, she brushed the snow off her SUV and was about to open the door when Christoph appeared beside her, holding a small wooden box in his calloused hands. It had no ribbon, no card, just simple craftsmanship. "I was going to give you this last night," he said, opening the lid. Inside was a wooden keychain, hand-carved. On it were 4 small figures, a tall man, a woman with long hair, a little girl, and a tiny baby cradled in the woman's arms. All 4 stood beneath a tiny roof carved above their heads. Christoph looked almost embarrassed. Letty drew it. "I just made it real. Thought you might want to keep a piece of our messy little life." Anna stared at the figures, then up at him. Her eyes glistened, but she said nothing. She got into the car, turned the key. The engine hummed to life. Christoph stepped back. Letty beside him in her little red coat, waving. Anna pulled away slowly, tires crunching over packed snow. The road opened ahead, winding through trees, clean and empty. Freedom. Return. Her old life waited. But after only a few meters, she hit the brakes. A deep sigh. Then she smiled. Screw it. She reversed the car, rolled down the window, and called out, "I make terrible pancakes, but I'm really good at decaf coffee." Letty cheered. Christoph's quiet smile widened. Not long after, the kitchen of the little cabin was filled with the aroma of frying butter and brewed coffee. Christoph flipped pancakes at the stove. Letty sat on the counter, kicking her legs and giggling. Anna stood barefoot in thick-knit socks, her hair a little messy, one hand resting on her belly, a coffee mug in the other. No suits, no boardrooms, no pressure. Just warmth and light and laughter. The 3 of them gathered around the wooden table, sun pouring through the frosted windows, catching steam rising from plates. Forks clinked gently. Syrup dripped slowly. Anna laughed as Letty made a face at her lopsided pancake. There were no grand gestures, no confessions, just a small shared moment. And inside Anna, a flutter, her baby moving, as if content. After breakfast, Christoph stepped out to the porch, the door creaking behind him. The snow had melted in patches, revealing soft earth below. Winter was still here, but it was changing. He turned back and saw Anna leaning in the doorway, the wooden keychain in her hand. She looked at him and said softly, almost to herself, "Turns out what I was looking for wasn't out there." It was in a little red coat running into the road. They didn't need to define what this was. They didn't need to say love. Some things were stronger than words. No one saved anyone. Just 3 people, soon to be 4, who found each other on a snowy evening and stayed. Not out of obligation, but because they chose to. A story without tears, but full of warmth. Just enough to thaw even the coldest winter heart. If this story touched your heart, please consider sharing it with someone who might need a reminder that it's never too late to find where you belong. Your support helps us continue creating heartfelt stories that celebrate the quiet moments that change everything. Thank you for reading.